Brendan Thompson, welcome back to the Soccer Queens podcast.
Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming back. The last time you were on, you were bashing the 2 mile run as conditioning for soccer players. So I'm sure my audience is excited to hear from you today on how to track speed progress and what it takes to really make drastic improvements in speed. So before we get into that topic, why don't you just give a summary of who you are and who you're working with today?
I'm a physical therapist and performance trainer here in the St. Louis area, as well as remotely online. I work with athletes between, the ages of 11 and 30, basically covering everything from managing their schedules, speed and performance, getting anything, strength conditioning related that I can, helping them get ahead of injuries, helping them come back from injury, and, trying to frame an overall positive athletic performance and competitive experience.
And do you want to remind the listeners where you competed at in college?
So I competed at the University of Iowa in track and field, and I was an All-American sprinter in the 4x1, and I guess that was like 7 years ago already. Wow, time's flying.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It
Yeah.
goes by way too fast. Okay, so let's get into the topic today. So, we're in the middle of summer off-season training, and there are a lot of athletes, I'm sure, reaching out to you. Hey, we really want to improve our speed. You also work with a lot of team sport athletes like field hockey, lacrosse, soccer, other sports. What is the frequency athletes should be training at right now in the off-season to really make an improvement?
In the off season period, you need to go at least twice a week, if not 3 times a week. You need to be training speed. The reason for that being is that speed is one of the things that detrains fairly quickly. So if you're not giving it attention within, I want to say the research says like a 2 to 8 day window, you're actually either just barely maintaining or possibly even going backwards. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, within 2 to 8 days, my time is going to drop substantially. It's more like, little things start to falter. So your coordination, your timing, your rhythm, your outputs, your flow, your relaxation, your form, mechanics, like all of these things kind of make up what speed is. And as those different qualities start to diminish, over time, your time too will diminish and your resilience to sprinting.
So 2 to 3 times a week at a minimum. And then how do we track progress? Because there's a lot of soccer players that aren't even timing their sprints. So would that be the first non-negotiable?
At least get a stopwatch. And even if you're not good at timing, if you can get a consistently bad time, your consistently bad time will improve over time as you track and progress it. If you're just really, really hit and miss, you can't figure it out for whatever reason, like save up a few $100 or, go fundraise, do something, work a job here and there, invest in a free lap timing system, a dasher timing system. There's other cheap timing systems you can find online. There's video timing apps that are a fraction of that price, but the setup can be a little tricky, but you need a tripod and a phone and you can get it done. Whatever it is that you're going to use for timing, you've got to stick to it and you've got to be consistent. So if I'm training over the course of 12 weeks and I just have like, okay, I'm going to do 3 sprints 3 times a week, it's really hard to stay hungry for that workout if you're not tracking it. Okay, I'm running, but why am I running? Well, if I'm just trying to like mentally check a box, my intent might be low. And so I'm not going to give it what I think it might deserve. You can't just go out and just run arbitrarily and expect good things to happen. When you start tracking things, you get hungry and competitive, and now you get those juices flowing. And now every single sprint becomes almost like an internal competition where, okay, last week I hit 1.12 for this segment. Maybe it's the 10 to 20 segment or whatever. I need to hit that or faster. And just having that internal drive can just change the way that you train and perform like tenfold, in my opinion. If we're going through things without purpose, sometimes we can get a little lazy. So now we're practicing bad mechanics, we're practicing bad intensities, we're probably not taking our rest periods seriously either. And so once we don't take one thing as serious, we probably aren't going to take the other things as serious as well.
Now, in terms of just assessment, so what do you do to access acceleration? Like, what types of drills should people be tracking? And then what do you track for top end speed?
So for acceleration qualities, I look at basically two or three things. So I look at horizontal jumps, I look at horizontal throws, and I look at different timing intervals from 0 to like 30 meters or 30 yards. So some of my horizontal jumps I like to use are the broad jumps and triple broad jumps. One that we used in college, it's maybe a little too advanced for younger athletes, is the standing triple jump, where they have to alternate feet versus going two-footed jumps. It's a really valuable test. I just don't feel like a lot of my athletes are in a place that I want to use it. The horizontal throws, I really like to measure the overhead back throw and the between the legs forward throws. I just use like a 8, 10, 12, 14, or 16 pound medicine ball. You just gauge it to the athlete and just kind of track it over time. And whatever you start with, like, you don't always have to use that ball, but when you are measuring and comparing, it's always good to go back and use the same ball that you tested with. So if you decide on day one you're going to throw a 12-pound ball as far as possible, but then you're training with an 8 or a 6 or a 16 or a 20-pound medicine ball, just make sure everything is comparable to day one. And maybe now you do some tests with your original 12-pound medicine ball again as things progress. The other one is the between the legs forward throw. It's kind of like a granny toss. Again, far as possible, just measure yards. And then for top speed, I like to just measure flies, crescendo sprints, and then vertical jumps. And those are really it. So top speed can be any interval between that 30, or honestly, sometimes even getting to 30 yards is long enough for some field sport athletes and younger athletes. But I'll push that out to 40, 50, 60 yards sometimes, just to give them the time they need to get up to speed. And then for crescendo runs, what I tend to tell athletes is, hey, you're going to get out pretty conservatively. Like, it might be a little faster than a jog. And as you continue to roll toward whatever distance we're rolling towards, you're just going to gradually work through your gears at your own pace. So as you're working through those gears, like, I'm not putting cones up to tell them when they need to hit top speed. They just get to go by feel and decide, okay, I think I'm at top speed. And then I just tell them to hold that for like 10 to 20 yards and shut it down. And so when I'm tracking that, obviously, if I don't have an interval set up with cones, I mean, I can't, because I can't predict where they're going to hit top speed. I just slap a Catapult GPS on them and just let Catapult kind of show me what max speed they hit on those reps.
Awesome. So yeah, I love those super simple, straightforward. Now with the broad jumps, what would be an excellent broad jump for, let's say, a high school girls soccer player?
So I've seen a pretty wide variety. For my younger soccer players, I usually see like 6 to 7 feet is like, that's a really good jump. If you get girls jumping much further than 7 feet, you've got like some serious athletes on your hands. Would you agree with that? What have you seen?
Yeah, I've seen very similar for that age. And then for the vertical jumps, what would you say? We'll compare again.
Yeah. So with my younger, again, like the younger athletes, we're talking like middle school to high school. If you're getting over 20, 20 is pretty solid. If you're getting, I've had a couple girls, just a handful, get like into the 22s, some into the 23s for like high school soccer. Again, you've got an athlete on your hands if you're getting like mid 20s like that.
Yeah, I
What if
agree with that.
Yeah,
Are you
you're right in there.
using the Just Jump mat? What are you using for that?
I use Just Jump.
Okay, me too.
It's
Yeah.
so simple. I don't have a plyo mat. My guess is that when I get my own space, I might get a plyo mat, but I think Just Jump is plenty good to measure consistently, and it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Um, and then I've got an eNode sensor, eNode Pro. I think it used to be VMAX Pro, And sometimes I'll do some different displacement things with that for like force type things. But yeah, overall, I just do vertical jump with the Just Jump. I've tried the vertical jump apps. Not really a big fan so far, but if I find something that's just as easy to use, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah, let me know. But I've been really happy with the Just Jump, and the measurements never go too far off. It's pretty consistent, so that's been really nice to see. And the girls like using it too. It's just a very easy piece of equipment. Now, for top end speed, so what are some times or mile per hour numbers for like high school soccer girls that are like, whoa, this is an athlete?
17 to 18 miles per hour,
Yeah,
and you're flying. You are flying.
yeah.
Again, I've had some that have been well above that. I've had some girls in the 19s and 20s, and again, if you're 17, 18, you're pretty fast among other high school athletes. If you're getting above that, I mean, you are screaming fast.
Mhm. And then in seconds, that would be like in the 1.2s and 1.1s. Trying to think
Um,
for
yeah.
the
So
fly 10s.
so 18 miles per hour would be 1.13,
Yeah,
give or take. Yeah,
yeah,
somewhere in there.
yeah. Yeah, that is flying. Now, let's move on to how we show our athletes that improvement over time. I'm not sure what you say to your athletes like in the off season, like how much they need to commit to, but would you say like give or take like 2 to 3 months to see like a noticeable change from the starting baseline?
So what I've found personally is that a lot of these athletes aren't touching speed as it is. So when they finally do find me, um, typically they're already overtrained. They have very little exposure to speed, very little exposure to true power training, plyometric training, sprint drills, biomechanics. And within a pretty quick window, I can see a pretty substantial improvement from baseline just because it's shocking their nervous system and it's just this novel stimulus. They get familiar with it, and suddenly, like, they might start here at 16.8 miles per hour, and within like a week, they might be at 17.3, and then kind of stabilize around like 17.3, 17.5. And now over the course of a few months, you might see incremental improvements over time. And maybe by the end of the 3 months, they're pushing 18 miles per hour or 17 high, or in some rare cases, as they're getting stronger, they might be like 18 and a half or something. But those that are super, super committed are the ones who tend to see the biggest incremental gains over time because they're stacking those little, excuse me, partial percentages multiple days per week. And as they do that and they just stick with it, their body just adapts and just becomes a more fine tuned machine that is built for speed and power as it pertains to soccer. So, I had a case study this past year, and he was a 14-year-old high school football player. He was 6'5", 140, and he just showed up every day. But his initial numbers were not good. It was like he was struggling to go like 7 feet in his broad jumps. And he's huge. He could basically fall forward and jump that far, right? But he's going like 7.5 feet. His miles per hour, he was just shy of 18. He was probably like 17.5 to 17.9. And his vert, he was like 17 inches. So he had a lot of 17s, a lot of sevens, a lot of, and then he just moved away in May, but he went from 17.8 miles per hour to 21.2. He went from a 17-inch vert to a 34-inch vert. So he literally doubled his vert. And then his broad jump went from 7.5 to 9.5 feet. And he's now 185, 190 pounds. So not only did he put on weight and go from, like a 15 BMI to like a healthy weight, but all of his performances like skyrocketed. He was not a varsity player. He didn't get much playing time in anything he was doing. And now suddenly he's like this really, really, really good athlete. I think examples like that just go to show like the power of consistency. And he was 2 to 3 times a week for basically a year.
Yeah,
And when he
that's
first
amazing.
started and he sees all of these people that are like man, I'm training next to this guy who's already 22 miles per hour. I'm training next to this guy who's already 19 miles per hour. And, there are a lot of points of frustration where he would get moving really well and get really, really close to 20 miles per hour. And the catapult would come back, say 19.95. Like, oh, come on, you got to give it to me. I'm like, no, no, you got to earn 20. You got to keep showing up. So he hit 19.9 like 4 times in a row.
Mm.
And then he had a breakthrough and went 20 and a half, 20.5 miles per hour. And the way that I kind of framed that for him is, this is just a law of averages. Like, you might wake up one day and be feeling amazing and you'll go PR. And then another day you might not be feeling as good and your training might suck relative to what you want to see or what you're used to. And you just have to keep showing up. And the difference between him and someone else is that if he keeps showing up and he's got his brain wrapped around the fact that, yeah, I'm okay with not being at my best every single day. I'm okay with not, chasing my best every single day, but I'm okay with like really stacking and earning my way up incrementally over time versus someone who gets discouraged after they miss a PR their first or second session or something. This kid will fall off and they will stop showing up. They'll stop training. They'll be discouraged. They'll be disheartened and kind of let down and hopeless. Whereas this other kid who is like, hey, yeah, I get it. Cool. I'm just going to keep going in the face of, his jumps might suck one day and most kids be like, oh, come on. I just did 32 the other day. Now I'm at 28. How's that possible? Well, you had 3 ultimate frisbee games this weekend. You didn't sleep. You had 7-on-7. You lifted 4 times and you trained with me twice. Your body's adapting. It's okay. It's all right. Just keep showing up.
It's good to help athletes just look at that macro picture with speed. It's just not a quick fix. It's something that they have to stick to and really be consistent with. I do want you to just talk about your rolling averages calculation on how you have just a data set of fly times over several months. And obviously, not every athlete's going to PR with their times every single week. So, how are you showing them that macro progress even when some weeks those times drop off by the millisecond?
What I try to frame, even as they're going day one, like we're going through a training session and maybe their first fly is 110, the second fly is 105, the third fly is 100. We'll just, for that example, the athlete's crazy excited they went one flat, but I'm telling them, look, your average is 105 today. So next time we show up, that is our baseline. That's how we define who you are, where you are, whatever. And it's not that this defines you as an athlete, it's that it just defines where you're trending and how we are relative to that average. So um, the next time they go, they know already that I don't care about one flat. I want to see 105 ballpark and pushing to get a better rolling average. So now maybe instead of a 110 to start, they go 108, they go 105, they go 100. It's almost the same data set, but they started off better. That's a better day. They improved. So what I do is when I'm putting this into a database, I have the database basically sample their average of the day. And every single session, I have a different average for that day. And so I can show them relative to where they started. Maybe they started a month ago. I can say, look, dude, day one, you were here. And then we kind of did this up and down little thing for a while. And then your averages started getting really, really close to your PR. So that 100 PR, 105 average, well, now they keep showing up. Now that average is 104, 103, 102, 100, boom, and they get a new PR. And it's like clockwork every time. Every time. Like the more consistent your body can get creeping up to your personal best, the more likely you are to have that next big breakthrough.
I love that. Now, just some final words for athletes who haven't done speed training yet and they really want to make some speed gains.
The best time to start was a year ago, and the next best time to start is today. You should train speed 2 to 3 times a week, take a day off in between, do 2 to 3 reps on each day, getting up to max speed. Probably give yourself 30 to 40 yards of real estate. Take full rest, which is 3 to 4 minutes rest, and just do it again and again and again and again and again, and just keep showing up. You will get faster. Speed's trainable. It's not just genetic. Your ceiling is genetic, but most athletes are severely undertrained in the speed department. So if you can find someone like, like me or like Erica or somebody else to really help build you a speed program meant for you and tailored for you, the sooner you're going to start seeing some huge improvements across not only speed, but all other performance metrics as well.
During the season, when girls soccer players are practicing 4 times a week, usually it's Monday through Thursday, how many times a week should they incorporate some sprints in there to not just maintain, but still improve a little bit over time?
I would say on weeks that aren't heavy with competition, like once or twice. Same deal. Like every other day or every 2 to 3 days, like get that in. And it doesn't have to be like a 45-minute commitment. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute commitment. You can finish your warm up at soccer and go hit a sprint. Like just go sprint really, really fast once or twice. It takes no time at all. Show up before soccer. Do it on your own. And maybe then your teammates will start to see it and they'll do the same thing. But whatever it is, you've got to find a way to get it in. I think the mistake a lot of athletes make in season is they do it on their day off, and now they're interrupting their recovery window. So you've got to find a way to work it into a day that's maybe not so demanding within your soccer training schedule. So like if Monday is a competitive day where you're scrimmaging or whatever else in soccer, and the next day, maybe it's still pretty intense, but it's not near as much volume. It's not as long. Like that might be a good window where you can get that in. You can just go get 1 or 2 sprints in. Heck, you could even do it on your intense day and just consolidate your stressors. Sprint on your intense day and then recover the next day. But whatever it is, just find a way to work it into your already made schedule. um, don't try to do a whole bunch of stuff on your 1 or 2 days off, if you even get days off. And now we're having a whole nother conversation about overtraining and burnout and chronic fatigue and things like that. So yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. Good final words there. So, this was awesome. I will include Brendan's social media links in the caption below, and also some of the exercises he mentioned in the episode, the vertical jump, broad jump, so you guys can see what they look like, and then the timing systems that were mentioned in this episode so that you can start tracking and looking at your improvements. It's non negotiable for speed. So, Brendan, thank you again, and I will see everyone on the next episode.